Hi there, I'm Ray and welcome to my September TBR. This is definitely more of a possibilities pile than an actual TBR that I will definitely read everything off. However, I just felt really compelled this month to gather together the books that are right at the top of my current reading radar because I've just got back from 4 years overseas and I'm finally in a position where I can buy books again and borrow books from the library and basically just have greater access to books, lots of books which I've kind of been saving up for myself, and there have just been so many of them pulling at my attention that I felt the need to gather them together into some sort of a list. So there's going to be a few parts to this video. I have the books that I will definitely be reading because I'm reading them as a buddy read or part of a book club. Then there's going to be my seasonal reads. I have been so inspired by BookTube in general to read more seasonally. I think it's something that I maybe did a tiny bit of instinctively, but definitely not to a huge extent. And I just love it. Even when I was living in a place where I didn't have the seasons that I'm used to, I felt really tempted to read the books that reflected whatever month it was. But now that I'm living back in the UK and it's autumn, it's the start of autumn, I'm so excited to read some books to really embrace that. So pretty much everything that I will be sharing is a seasonal, autumnal, September-y read. Partly I'm going to link a lot of the books that I would like to read to series September, but there are also just a load of other books that I just really want to read. So I better get going. First couple of books that I am definitely going to read are Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell and Hamlet by William Shakespeare. I am reading these with a group organised by Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. So I'll also be reading with Jack from Spread Book Joy, Lisa from Lisa in Bookland, and Kristen from Enter the Book. And we're reading this for Shaktember. I will link the hosts and the details for Shaktember below. I'm not actually planning to read any of the specific Shakespeare plays that they've got planned for Shaktember, but I have been wanting to read Hamnet for absolutely forever. I feel like I'm one of the only people who hasn't read it yet. I am obsessed with the cover and I've heard really good things about it. So I thought it would be really nice to read it with a group and also to pair it with Hamlet, which I did study at university, but I find with Shakespeare that he slips out of my mind very quickly. After I've finished reading, I quickly forget the names of all the characters and the intricacies of the plot, so it's going to be nice to go back to, and I found my old university Norton Critical Edition, which has got some essays in the back, which is generally my favourite part of reading Shakespeare, is doing the kind of analysis and thinking about it more than the actual plain text. I tend to enjoy the sort of literary criticism side of it more, so I'm looking forward to that. Hamnet is going to be my first Maggie O'Farrell. I know she's quite a prolific writer, somebody that a lot of people have read many of her books, and it tells the story of Shakespeare's wife and I believe the circumstances of grief around the death of Shakespeare's own son. Hamnet is fiction, but inspired by real life events, I believe. So yeah, really excited to read those. Need to get my hands on a copy of Hamnet. And also wish it would cool down and feel a bit more autumnal because it is actually September when I'm filming this and it's still super warm and quite like muggy today. I'm very ready for the cooler weather and the September reading mood. The next and only other book that I'm definitely going to read because it's for a book club is Miss Adeline's Match by Joanna Barker. And this is for Kate Howe's Kindred Spirits book club, which I always absolutely adore. This is a Regency romance, it's a historical fiction. I don't know anything more about it than that. And I'm looking forward to it because it's for the Kindred Spirits book club. I'm not normally a massive Regency period fan. I tend to prefer the Victorian period, and I have read very little romance, which is odd because I think I probably would like it. I'm always really into the romance plot in the other genres that I read. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I think it might open the door to a whole new genre of reading for me. Next up we have series September, which I'm using as a helpful list of prompts to try and organise somewhat the vast numbers of books that I really want to read. This is hosted by Krista over at Books and Gems and Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand. I will link the details and the prompts down below. But the kind of books that I'm filling this list up with are many books which are inspired by seasonal reading. And I also want to mention Miranda from Miranda Mills's channel. She has done a year's worth of seasonal reading recommendations, so monthly reading recommendations. And September was the first month that she did, like this time last year. So there's a great resource there, which I will link down below, for finding really lovely books to read in September. And I've gained so many books on my TBR from watching Miranda's videos. If you like my channel and my taste in reading, you will absolutely certainly love the stuff that she likes to read, and I always find a phenomenal number of great sounding books whenever I watch any of her videos. I add about 10 to my TBR. So prompt number 1 is to start a new series, and I have been absolutely desperate for ages now to start the Betsy Tacy series by Maud Hart Lovelace. The first book that we read for the Kindred Spirits book club was Emily of Deep Valley, which is a standalone book that's set in the same world as the Betsy Tacy series. That I had never heard of this series before, and now that I've heard of it once, I see it absolutely everywhere. Everybody whose reading taste I like adores these books. I think I'm going to feel really sad that they weren't part of my childhood, but I think I'm going to love them nonetheless. And I've been waiting to get back to the UK so that I can buy myself a copy of them. They're all out at the moment in this same beautiful style. So I'm really looking forward to buying them and having all of the books matching. And something which I think will be really nice about starting this series is, in a similar way to the Laura Ingalls Wilder Little House series, the books grow with the characters, I guess in a similar way to Harry Potter as well, but starting younger. So I think in the first book, Betsy is 5, and it's a very simple book that's written in a way that could be read by, or at least to, a 5-year-old. So firstly, I think the first few books will be a real breeze and a whiz to get through, and I'm also prepared for the fact that they almost certainly won't be my favourite ones in the series. However, fortunately, I'm so won over by Maud Hart Lovelace's writing in here that I'm invested enough to go through the first few books, even if they feel very simplistic and young, knowing that the series is going to grow in depth and richness as it goes on. So that's a series that I am super excited to start. The second prompt is double it up, read 2 books in the same series, and I plan to also read the second book, Betsy, Tacy and Tib, and I think the first 3 books come collected together in one volume because they're all very short, so that should be nice and easy to do. Number 3 is Blast from the Past, an old series or a series that you started a long time ago. For this, I am going to read, it's a series that I have previously read, but I'm doing a reread of, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm rereading them in French to practice my French. I started this one about a year and a half ago. It's obviously a lot longer than the first 3, so it's taking me longer to get through, but I'm hoping to finish it this month. I've only got about 8 hours left on both on Kindle, and I'm also listening to an audio book. I'm switching between the 2, or sometimes reading and listening simultaneously. So yeah, it's very achievable for me to finish this. And Harry Potter is also a lovely September read. I think Back to Hogwarts is very much a September mood. Number 4 is Talk of the Town, a popular series that you haven't read. And for this, I'm going to, again, hope to finish a book that I have on the go but have not finished yet, and that's The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, which is part of the first book in his incredibly long Wheel of Time series. This book has been very popular lately because of the adaptation of it that's out on Amazon. I am maybe about halfway through. They're very long fantasy books, and I'm really not sure what I think yet. I might love it, and I might find it just not for me. I can't tell. I need to keep going with it. I need to invest a chunk of time in it. I have another long fantasy book later on this list as well, because I think with the nights drawing in, with hopefully having a little bit more time and the pace of life slowing down that little bit, with it being autumn and getting colder, it feels like the perfect time to tackle those long fantasy books, which I've been really wanting to read. Number 5, that's a wrap, is to finish a series, and for this I'm going to listen to Jo's Boys by Louisa May Alcott. I have been meaning for my entire life to read the whole of the Little Women series. I adore Little Women. I was not a huge fan of Little Men, which is the third book in the series, but Jo's Boys is set 10 years after Little Men, and it's about Jo's sons, rather than Little Men was just about all of the boys at the school that Jo was running, and it was fine, but it was very anecdotal, small, moralistic stories, and I didn't really latch onto it. I didn't mind it while I was listening to it, but I really didn't love it. I'm hoping that Little Men, because of the age that not Little Men, what's it called? Jo's Boys, I always get those mixed up. Hoping that Jo's Boys, because of the age that the boys are at in it, i.e. they are now young men, I think there'll probably be some kind of romance plotline, which I might enjoy more. So I'm looking forward to that, and even if I don't like it, I'm really looking forward to having finished that series, so that I just have the knowledge of where that series goes, what it's like, how it's written, because I love reading older children's fiction. I find it really fascinating. A lot of it I really enjoy, but a lot of it I also just love kind of filling in the mental pieces of what were the popular books at the time and what are they like. So even if I don't love it, it feels like a worthwhile read for me. Number 6, out of the box, is a suggestion that you read a different genre or format or category than you normally read. And for this, I'm putting another fantasy book. I know I've already said a fantasy book here, but I really don't read fantasy very much. It's something I would like to read more of, because I do tend to enjoy it when I read it, and I'm definitely really craving it at the moment. And the book which I would love to read is very long, so I appreciate, as I mentioned at the start, I'm probably not going to be able to get anywhere near all of these books read, and maybe these longer ones might have to slip into a later month. However, it is The Final Empire by Bryan Sanderson, and Petra has been raving about this trilogy, and I tend to really love the same books that she loves, so I'm really excited to try this one. I've been wanting to read some fantasy that I will adore. I've been kind of wondering a little bit how to get into fantasy. Like I mentioned with the Wheel of Time books, I'm really on the fence about whether they're something that's going to be for me or not. I reread Lord of the Rings last year and quite enjoyed them. They've definitely stayed with me actually as an enjoyable experience, more than I thought they would. But yeah, fantasy is a genre that I enjoy, but it's not quite a favourite genre. However, I suspect within it there are definitely some favourite books, and given how much I'm feeling in the mood for this, I think that would be a really lovely one to read if possible. I think I'm gonna see if I can get it out of the library, because I fancy reading it rather than listening to it as an audiobook. Sometimes I think with long fantasy novels, I feel like maybe a mistake I've made with The Wheel of Time, listening to it as an audiobook, is that actually you just want to curl up with a blanket and become completely immersed rather than trying to listen to it while you're doing other things. I'm not sure. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. Number 7 is You Own It, Now Start It, a series that you have a few of on your shelves but haven't started yet. So I've currently moved into a new house. All of my stuff, all of my books are being shipped over from the Congo and will take months to get here. So I definitely don't have anything currently here that fits this category, but I also don't think I have anything currently anywhere that fits this category. Like I definitely don't have more than one of a series that I haven't started reading kicking around. So I'm gonna do a bit of a cheat for this one, and I'm going to say Joy in the Morning by P.G. Wodehouse, because I do have a lot of P.G. Wodehouse books in my Audible library, and you know, there's so much by him. This is obviously from the Jeeves and Wooster series. There are so many by him. He's so prolific that even though I have started it, there are still very many more to go. Then number 8 is Now You Can Watch It, a series that there is an adaptation of. A couple of wonderings for this one. I'm undecided at the moment. So one that feels very September, very back to school, very autumnal, that I would like to read is the first book in the Mallory Towers series. It is called The First Term at Mallory Towers by Enid Blyton. Largely because I kind of feel like I missed out on these books as a child. My mum really didn't enjoy Enid Blyton's boarding school books when she was a child, so she didn't get them for me, and I've always wondered what they're like, whether I would like them or not. However, I just read the blurb of it, and it basically said it's a load of private school posh girls just being mean to each other and their teachers, which does sound like the kind of thing that I wouldn't have liked, and I know that's why my mum didn't like it, so I don't know whether I'd love it. And also, at some point, not recently, I have tried rereading Enid Blyton's books as an adult, and even though I enjoy reading children's books as an adult, Enid Blyton did feel too young for me. So I'm not sure. However, I think I would like to experience it. I'll see perhaps if I could get an audiobook of it for free, then I would have a go at listening to it, or maybe even just get out the library, because it would obviously be a quick read. And there is an adaptation of it that the BBC did a while ago, and so many people have told me that I would really love it. I think it's really quite cozy and beautiful and very autumnal feeling, kind of windswept, gorgeous boarding school. And I do think I might quite like boarding school books. I kind of do feel that I missed out on not having read any of them. They're books that Miranda Mills talks about loving a lot, not the Mallory Towers books specifically, but just the boarding school genre in general. So I kind of want to dip my toe in it a bit, and it feels very September. However, if I don't read that one, which is quite possible, I would love to read Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I've started listening to these on audiobook. They are gorgeous. They are so nicely read. They have somebody playing the fiddle for Pa, and it's just a really atmospheric way to re-experience this series, which was one of my favourites as a child. So yeah, I don't think Little House on the Prairie feels autumnal at all, but I also have discovered that I can watch all of the Little House on the Prairie series from the 70s on Amazon, and I am loving watching those. They are such a comfort watch for me. I've watched quite a few of them already, so it would be nice to read that one, given that I kind of am in the process of watching that series right now. And then the last prompt is Three's a Crowd. 3 books in the same series, or a book in a trilogy. And for this, I'll probably go with the third Betsy Tacy book, because as I mentioned, I think that the first 3 books come together in one volume when you buy them, and the third one is called Betsy and Tacy Go Over the Big Hill. So those are all of the prompts and the books that I want to read for them for series September. I love reading series. I need to sit down at some point and actually work out how many series I'm in the middle of. I don't think it's ridiculous, but it probably would turn out that it is if I sit down and work it out properly. However, for now, as we go into autumn, as we work towards winter and the long nights, I'm just feeling so excited for all of the cozy reading, and it's a good time to get myself into some series I think that I might just enjoy working through over the course of the next few months. Now lastly, we have just a bunch of seasonal reads that I really want to read, or books that are just so high up my radar, books that when I hear other people talk about them, when I read reviews of them, I just want to stop the world and read them immediately. And so these are all books which I know I won't get to all of them in September, but I'm hoping to get to as many as I possibly can. I'm really in such a reading mood at the moment, so we'll see how much I can manage, and if not September, then soon. I have a few quick ones which I've just taken directly off Miranda's September recommendations list, because they all sounded like books I would love. Other school books, we have I think this is kind of a school book. It's a book that I've heard recommended by a lot of people whose reading tastes I really know aligns with mine, and this is The All of a Kind Family by Sydney Taylor. And this is a book about, I believe, a family who are really quite poor and live in New York City, and just about like the adventures and misadventures they get up to. But I think they are a really loving and delightful family unit. And I know that there are like stories about their relationship with the local librarian as part of this, and it just sounds like a really wholesome, gorgeous book. So I would like to get to that one. Then we have Beswitched by Kate Saunders, which is a time slip book, another boarding school book about a girl who gets sent off to boarding school by her parents in the 21st century, but when she arrives at the boarding school, she finds out she's in 1935, and she's trying to work out why she's there. She's in this freezing cold boarding school, she hates it, and she just wants to get back to real time. I thought this sounded lovely. I love historical fiction books. I enjoy the time slip trait in children's fiction, so that sounds like a fun read. I'm going to see if I can find that at the library maybe. Then the book which was recommended, which sounds obviously perfect for September, is a book called September by Rosamund Pilcher. I haven't read any Rosamund Pilcher yet, and I have had so many people encouraging me so warmly to read her writing. I think she's really domestic. She tells like quite family saga-esque plots. Just like everything about her sounds like what I would love. So I might read September because it's called September. However, I'm also really tempted, and if you know Rosamund Pilcher, please advise me in the comments. I'm really tempted to start with The Shell Seekers because as I've been reading people's reviews of September, I think it features a character from The Shell Seekers in it, although I don't think it's at all necessary that you read The Shell Seekers first, from what I can tell. But most people just kind of say that like September is good, but it's not Pilcher at her best, and The Shell Seekers... September is often compared to The Shell Seekers, and The Shell Seekers comes off better. And given that this is my very first kind of dipping my toe into the waters of her works, I'd quite like to start with one of her very best. I think it's nice to start with something that will completely win your heart for an author, rather than starting with something that might be a little bit more so-so. So I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. Is it better to read September because it's more seasonal reading, or is it better to just read The Shell Seekers because that one's better? Would love to hear your thoughts. We then have one that I've actually bought already. I was so excited for this. This is September Moon by John Moore. I got this gorgeous vintage copy. I can tell I'm going to start collecting vintage books. When I was a teenager, I adored vintage books, and would like go to the local charity shops and buy vintage books all the time, often not such beautiful copies as these. And then more recently, well, I haven't been able to, but I also just haven't really thought of doing it so much. This book was out of print, so I had to buy a vintage copy. It's turned up. I'm head over heels in love with the way it looks, the way it smells, the way it feels in my hands. So yeah, I think a lot more might be coming from where this has come from. And the reason I'm so excited about September Moon is it's a novel that is set during the time of the hop picking in Britain. And my grandfather used to go hop picking as a child every summertime, I guess, around every September. He would go with his family to pick hops down in Kent. And it was something that he talked about so warmly and so often. It was clearly like the happiest, one of the happiest times of his life. And he would talk about, singing around the fire in the evening and the long days under the sun, picking the hops. And honestly, it wasn't until I was an adult that I realised that, of course, his family were going hop picking for money. Like, it wasn't a holiday. It was, in a way, a working holiday, but it was also a necessity for them. Because he just had loved the experience so much. And I'd never read about it. It's not a setting that I've ever come across for a novel before, so when Miranda mentioned that this was the setting of the novel, I just had to get it immediately. So I'm really excited to read that. I believe it's a romance story set in the climate of the hop picking, and I think it has like a range of characters and should just be a really interesting, fascinating read. We then have Autumn Term by Antonia Forrest. This is a boarding school book, but I've heard that it's a boarding school book that is not really just for children, but one that's very enjoyable to read as an adult as well, because the characters have a lot more depth to them than in just a standard children's boarding school book. We have Family Grandstand by Carol Ryrie Brink. This was the Kindred Spirits book club pick for last month, which I couldn't join, unfortunately. And it's a story of a family in a Midwestern university town. Everybody loved it so much that the sequel to this is going to be the book club read the following month. So I need to catch up, A, and B, everybody loved it, so I'll probably love it. Also, I think the father is a lecturer. It's kind of like a university town sort of vibe, which also goes with that September back to school feel. Also, this is a very Kate Howe inspired reading list. I realise there are so many books she's talked about that I just have been wanting to read for the longest time now. Ella Enchanted, which was another one of her book club reads that I didn't manage to get to. This is a Cinderella retelling. Again, I think I'll try and see if I can get this out of the library. It will be a lovely, sweet read. As I've mentioned, I'm craving fantasy. I'm craving, I guess, like fairy tales, escapism, otherworldliness in the books that I read right now. There's something about autumn. It has that otherworldly feel to it. The mists, the cooler air. The nature which saturates this time of year, and so I'm really craving books like that. On a similar line, although this is not a children's book, I have been wanting to read for ages a book called Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. This is the first book in a series, I believe, and it's a fairy tale retelling. The fairy tale being the fairy tale of the six swans, which I don't think I actually know, unless that's... No, it's not the Swan Lake story, is it? I don't think I actually know it, but never mind. It's set, I believe, in England, kind of like mixing ancient English mythology with this fairy tale, and I've just heard it raved about again by so many people whose reading tastes I really respect. The cover makes it look like the kind of book I would love, so I'm super keen to get to that one if I can. And lastly, I had to write a list, as you can tell from my laptop over here. I would love to read The Lake House by Kate Morton. Kate Morton, kind of like Rosamund Pilcher, is just another author who so many people have been recommending to me. She sounds brilliant. I'm sure I would love her work and I would love to get to it. Okay, my camera's about to die. Thank you so much for watching. Join me throughout September as I hopefully read as many of these wonderful sounding books as I can. I hope you have a fabulous reading month in September, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.